right? We're going to talk about identifying your critical touch points. And we've talked about that in a roundabout way in different trainings regarding, for a customer to truly work through that know, like, and trust framework, they have to have at least 7 to 10 touch points before they really trust you to jump in and say yes, right? So with that, we're going to talk about that first. What are your touch points that you're using already? Where can you improve on that or add to it? The second thing we're going to talk about is finding the missing pieces in the customer journey. And I was actually just working on this with a client yesterday during our open office hours, as far as what are they doing to communicate and what does that journey look like for them. So we're going to talk about that today. And then we're going to really then dive into creating those lifelong customers, right? And generating referrals. So, talking head, I don't like to be. So jump in with questions, comments. I'm watching on my phone for comments. So when you kind of see me look off to the side, I'm looking at my phone for comments to follow along. And there is a delay. And when I look at it, I'm looking at it's likely about a 45-second delay. So I have my coffee. So that way, if I take a break, I can kind of catch up with comments in the replay on this side. So for those of you who are new, welcome. If you don't know who I am a holistic business coach. I've been coaching for almost 19 years now. What makes me unique when we start talking about that unique selling proposition is, as a holistic business coach, I'm a Reiki master teacher, cranial sacral therapist, and then with all my corporate background, I bring those together to create this unique experience for my clients, because our philosophy is that when we make decisions and implement strategies that are aligned with our whole being, that we're not having to come back and revisit that, because we've created a strategy that is sustainable, because it's in alignment with who we are as an individual and what is best for our business. So now I'm bringing to you guys these trainings every week. One, because I think knowledge is power and it's not meant to be kept, it's meant to be shared. So these are normally top level trainings where we don't dive deep into things, but just an introduction, kind of give you some homework to do from them to hopefully then implement into your own business and be asking questions on how to formalize it for yourself. So this week, first topic, identifying your critical touch points. Making sure comments. All right, let's see where are we at. And I have my notes to make sure I stay on track, because distractions happen all the time. So let's see, identifying critical touch points. Why does this matter? Why do you think that your touch points matter? And when we're talking touch points, we're talking interaction to comments on your content. We're talking emails that are sent out, one-on-one interactions. What do those touch points look like for you when you think of that, right? Because we need to know your unique selling proposition. That really sets the expectation, right? And if you're not meeting them along the journey, then they're going to feel like something is off. And those touch points are all part of your journey. So, and then there's things called micro moments. And those are actually more important than the bigger touch points. So we send an email out, somebody opens it and reads it, that's a touch point. But there's the micro touch points that kind of go beyond that. And those are the ones that are not scheduled. They're not part of the mainstream, but how we as a business owner can jump in and create those, right? So we're going to kind of talk about what that might look like for you guys. So what do you guys think of? What are your touch points right now? How many touch points are you having with your customers? Do you have an email set up, a sequence set up? Is there on your social platforms? What are your touch points right now? Do you have a map? Do you have a layout? Have you worked through it? Right? We're not needing to do a complete overhaul, but you need to make sure that you at least know your critical touch points. So what does that look like for you guys right now? Does anybody want to share? Oh, look, comments. And I will come back to comments with the gap of timing and the delay. So, but for us, right, internally, to share kind of what we do, right? First touch point, if we use this Facebook group as an example, you join, we send a welcome message to each and every one of you, right? Because it's important that you feel welcome. That's our first touch point. Then the second touch point is we tag you in a welcome message. And if you've said yes, you really want to kind of jump on and take advantage of that free strategy session, then we tag you in another post to make sure that you're looking for a specific message around that in your direct messages, right? And then the third touch point comes in an email, if you give us an email. And if not, then it becomes this Tuesday training is our fourth touch point, where we get to see and interact with you because we tag you in this as a welcome message. So from there, then we kind of respond to your interaction. That's how we use the Facebook group members, and we make sure we're using those touch points. We feel with the members more than 4 or 5 touch points, and we can't dictate. We can't truly lay that out because after the fourth, we need to be responsive. We can't be proactive with those touch points because we use our direct messaging. Your inbox is really sacred, and we do not like to abuse it or take advantage of it. So unless you've given us direct permission to keep the conversation going, we honor that with just one message. So we limit our touch points with our members here to 4, knowing that we'll be responsive from that point out, right? So what does your current touch point journey look like? And if you don't have a map of that touch point, then that's your first task. That's your first piece of homework. Okay, create just a simple touch point map. Jot down every place that your customer encounters your brand, whether it be on your website, your social media, the email, a phone call, an in-person meeting, right? Because for each touch point, then you want to write down 1 or 2 words that describes the customer's emotional experience. Because remember, as customers, we're an emotional purchaser for everything, right? Right down to when you go and buy your jug of milk. It's an emotional, we buy with our emotions. And for the most part, some people go, oh no, it's a strategy. Like I have a budget, I plan on this, and that's still triggered by emotion. So you want to make sure that every touch point that you have with your clients or potential clients, that there's an emotional connection, or you're leaving it open to create an emotional connection, right? So we want to make sure that we're invoking some sort of response, whether it be a curious response or an excited, response. If you think a touch point brings about confusion, and please know it will happen, because you and I both know, we know our business inside our head super easy. We just know it all. But how that translates to how we present it to others, it may be received differently. And so it may cause confusion, which is why it's really important, if you don't already have 2 or 3 people that are your perfect clients or ideal client, that avatar, have them kind of go through those touch points. And if at any time they say, oh, this kind of confused me, I wasn't 100% sure what this meant, then you're going to want to address it to make sure you refine it for people to be able to not be confused and have clarity and invoke the emotional response you really want them to have. So that's the first point, right? That's the first one. What are your touch points? And if you don't have anything on that touch point map that you create, if you can only identify 2 or 3, then start thinking about what's next. What are the other ways you can create an opportunity to interact and have those additional touch points with those potential clients, right? Your audience. And why would you want a touch map? Why do you think it would be important to have and create this, like just a simple list of all the different touch points? It's important because when you look at the journey, you're going to really get clear on, are the experiences that your brand is providing, are they living up to that unique selling proposition promise, right? What's that promise? You want to make sure you're living up to it on every single touch point. So that's why it's important to do that touch point map. If you haven't done it yet, you definitely want to do that. All right. So then that brings us to the second step, the second piece of really creating these loyal customers and into like kind of the raging fans. And that's fixing the missing pieces, right? So when you create that customer journey, you're going to identify the pieces that are either missing or not in alignment. And you're going to create and find and fix those missing pieces. So now that we've identified those touch points, we want to make sure that it's consistent and the impression that we're leaving is that positive, right? We talked about the emotional connection. So for here, this is where it matters. Because if you're not connecting on making a positive impact, we need to make sure we correct it to have that. Okay. So where we're at now, questions, comments, because then we'll kind of get into the fixing of the mistakes. What does that look like? How does that feel? So questions. Okay. So identifying your touch points, why it matters, because it will allow us to understand where we're inconsistent and whether we're not making that positive impact, right? And if we know that there is a gap, then that's that weak link in the journey. And if there is a weak link, then guess what happens to those potential customers? They jump out, they become uninterested, right? Because all of a sudden now it's kind of like this, yeah, no, and now they're gone, right? We get very little opportunity to keep them and keep them coming back. So it's important that we review those touch points in the journey on a regular basis. So what are some of the key mistakes you think small businesses make when they're doing their touch points, creating their touch points or that customer journey? What are some of the key mistakes that you've experienced as a consumer, right? Or that you've recognized in your own? And self-reflection can be hard, but it's really important. What do you think some of the mistakes are that we might make? And I'm going to tell you, I've made them, so I'm not immune to all of this, right? So some of them are inconsistent messaging. Another one is slower response time, broken follow-up sequences. So what does that mean? It means that you have a sequence of, say, emails that happen that are triggered by a certain activity from your client or potential client. And then all of a sudden, not all of them work. So the first 2 go out without an issue, but the third one isn't consistent. And then all of a sudden, so some people might miss that third one, and then they get the fourth one, and they're like confused. Again, there's that confusion. Confusion is like the exit strategy for people. It's their excuse to leave, right? So you're going to want to make sure that you review those follow-up sequences regularly. You want to make sure that your response times are quick. And what I always tell people, when you're watching the replays, here or inside of the replay vault, if you make a comment or ask a question and I don't respond timely, and when I say timely, I mean within 24 hours, that then you need to reach out to me, because it means Facebook hasn't notified me that there's a comment, or there's been a, right? And that happens. And the same inside the women's resource community. Sometimes the comments don't trigger a notification to me, right? What does that mean? That also means that that's a weak link for us, and it's a weak link for Facebook and their notification system. And for you guys, it's not timely. Therefore, we're not being consistent, and we're not living up to our promise when we talk about our unique selling proposition, right? So consistency matters. What you say, you need to follow up on. In Facebook, when they look at your engagement, whether it be on Instagram or on Facebook itself, they will actually tell you what your response time is. And when you're interacting, so if I'm interacting with somebody's brand on Instagram, it will actually tell me what my response time is going to be expected. So normally they respond within 2 hours. Normally they respond in 1 hour, right? They give that expectation to your potential customer before you have a chance to even prove them right or wrong, which is why you want to make sure you're on top of it, right? So when we're creating content that we really want to have conversion, right? Because we're looking at touch points. So if one of your touch points is on social media, so let's use Instagram as an example, right? You want to have content that is high converting. That's like all of us, right? That's our goal. Now, that doesn't always happen. So is there a missing piece in the flow of your initial contact or introduction of your brand, right? We know there's the algorithms, and we know we're fighting that all the time, and they're changing it all the time. But for us as a brand, with your consistency, are you consistently creating similar content, or are you mixing it up? And depending upon what you're creating is going to dictate that conversion, that people coming up and interacting, right? So, and that when we're looking at that key mistake, that's that inconsistent messaging. So we've talked, I think it was maybe 3 weeks ago, we did a training on brand messaging and your voice, your brand voice. I think there was 2 different trainings on those, that this is where it matters. So if you are not consistent with your content, then that's the one challenge you need to correct. But then if you're consistent with your content, but you're inconsistent with the messaging, the voice of the brand, then that also can cause confusion. So you want to make sure that not only are you consistently showing up and posting and sharing and interacting, you want to make sure your voice is consistent. The terms you're using, the words you use, how you have a conversation, right? And we know life changes, and that can impact how we interact. So for you, for me, right? So last week I was traveling to Ontario to support my sister, and it caused, a change in my schedule, what was normal, right? Did my live training here, and then I left to drive up. The rest of the week, I was completely inconsistent. But what I did is I communicated that, right? So normally in the mornings, if you haven't noticed, I've been doing the morning musings at 9 a.m. between 9 and 9:30, where I get on. It's just like a 2 to 3 minute, hey, here's today's business tip. This is a question that was asked. Here's the answer. This is what I recommend. And I didn't do it Thursday, Friday, but I forewarned everybody, right? So in my messaging on Wednesday, if you see it, like I'm outside all bundled up and I was freezing because it was super cold, I shared that I wasn't going to be doing the live trainings, like those quick morning musings, to let everybody know that my inconsistency was going to happen. And then I got right back on yesterday and started it again, right? So if you know you're going to be inconsistent because life happens, then share that. That's part of being authentic, which goes back to our training on voice and brand, right? So when you're looking at your content, that inconsistent messaging isn't just necessarily the visual, it's also the tone and what you're saying and how you're saying it, right? So at this point, this is where when you start to realize where your inconsistencies, where your gaps are, you need to look at your internal processes. What is it that allows you to respond quickly? So if we use that slow response time as an example, how would you address it? What is your internal process for you to improve that response time, right? How do you set that expectation to ensure that you can meet the expectation, right? This is where we not just, say what we say, but we do what we say, right? So what does that look like for you? Because when you start creating those internal processes, that also impacts your loyalty from your customers and the referral rate. Because when you're not consistent, if you're not quick to respond, living up to those promises, and they start to kind of jump off, where are they going? If they were looking to you as the solution, and now all of a sudden they can't rely on you as the solution, where do you think they're going? They're going to your competitor. And I know people are like going, I don't like using the word competitor, but it's true. We are not the one and only. We are in a small, crowded space. And yes, I love collaboration and I'm all for it. But I also have to understand who, if I can't meet the needs or if I'm not showing up, they're going to go to somebody else. Somebody else is doing what I'm doing, right? Good, bad, or indifferent. I'm not going to judge it. I just know, right? So you have to make sure that internal processes meet the demand and the expectation that you're promising. Okay. So you have created your touch point map. That was the first homework that I just did, right? You want to take and do your touch point map. Now, you want to figure out what is one weak point in that touch point map, right? So is your engagement low? Your follow-up sequence, is it lacking? Is it there? Is it not? And you want to draft a quick fix plan. So once you have your touch point map, what is that one weak point that you want to address this week, right? So you want to outline the exact steps that you're going to take to improve that single point. So it might be sounding like scheduling 15 minutes daily to respond to comments or to create a 3-part welcome email. Whatever that solution is, you want to make sure you outline the steps. Okay, so that's your second task. First task is to the touchpoint map. Now you want to identify one weak point and come up with a quick draft of a solution. How are you going to fix it? Right? Why is it important for you to do this step and outline this draft? Is because it starts the process of patching the leaks in the customer journey. Because if you think of your boat with many holes, right? You're going to be putting a finger and a toe trying to stop the leakage. This is one of them. This is why, right? Because all those holes where the water's leaking out, those are your customers leaving or potential customers leaving. So you need to start patching those up. So this week, you're going to start by picking one and create a quick fix plan. Okay. So if you're unsure how to create or what is a best fix plan, then over inside the Women's Business Resource Community in the town square, hop in there and share with us what your quick plan is so we can work with you to help get it together. Okay. So you can get it implemented. All right. Those are the first two pieces. The third piece is, what does that lifelong loyalty and referrals look like? We've done a previous training on sales scripting, and we did a training on the actual post-customer sale process. I think that might be gone already, Facebook. So it's definitely over in the replay vault. But those are two trainings as well. If you are having a challenge with this piece, right, creating lifelong customers, then it starts with that sale, that point of sale. And then what is your plan after? So we did a whole training on that post-sale piece, I want to say maybe 4 weeks ago. So that's a great one because it expands on this, what we're talking about right now, because it's not just about making that single sale, right? Lifelong loyalty and customers isn't about one time, right? You need to be able to foster that, nurture that relationship to have repeat business, right? Because the more satisfied your customers are, then the faster they turn into brand advocates for you. And we know the best form of marketing is word of mouth. So taking care of your current customers and those customers that have just finished either purchasing or ending your program are the ones you really need to make sure you stay in contact with and do that follow-up, right? So loyal customers automatically refer people. Because think about it. How often do you leave a restaurant and the next day you're talking to your friends and you're raving about the restaurant, or you're not raving about the restaurant? You find a new laundry soap, right? And Christy will laugh at this. I'm sure we use the exact same laundry soap. When you find that laundry soap that you absolutely love, what are you going to say? You're going to share it with all your friends, right? Your favorite pair of tights. It's anything and everything that we buy. We are a brand advocate. And you see it in teenagers. They only want to buy certain brands because that's what everybody else is buying. So it comes naturally to us as humans to share what we like. And we also are quick to share what we don't like, which is why word of mouth is so important in that customer journey. And those touch points are so important, right? So if your current clients are not actively referring, then that means there's a gap. It's hidden and it's not readily available, but it's hidden where your current customers are going, I'd love to refer them, but I'm not 100% sold yet, right? And it's also about that engagement process. So how do we create lifelong loyalty and those coveted referrals, right? Because those are high value. It's really refining that unique selling proposition, right? The smooth experience at every single stage. Making sure that you're proactive in relationship building and you're not just kind of sitting back and letting them come to you. And I can talk from experience. The more I nurture certain relationships, the more I see the response and the referrals. And then the customers or the clients that maybe I didn't nurture as well, because I'm human, right? I don't always do things 100% all the time. So I slip up. But I see those customers or those clients who I didn't really quite nurture to the best of my ability and where they're at versus the ones that I do, right? So that's really important. That client, and you're not hand-holding, you're nurturing the relationship, right? You're offering value ongoing. So that is really, right, that proactive piece. And that's why that post-sale customer journey almost becomes more important than the pre-sale customer journey, because those are the ones that are going to be your word of mouth marketing brand experts. Okay. What are some of the missing pieces you think are around this piece, around, kind of building that customer loyalty. One of them is no structured referral program, right? So inside the Women's Business Resource community, we have a 10% referral. We call it a collaborator's fee. So as long as you are an active member, right, at the neighbor level or higher, and you refer anybody else, then you get 10% of that referral, right? Because we want to thank you for that, because that means you're happy with the community and all the things that we're offering. And so you bring in more people in, you earn a little bit of money, and we get to expand the impact that we're making around the world with women in business, right? So what does that referral program look and feel like for you? Do you have one? If you don't, can you implement one? What would it look like? So, and I'm going to speak from experience, like right now as we're doing this training, right? We don't do, inside the Women's Business Resource community, we don't do a good enough job sharing that referral piece for our members. And I need to do better because it's valuable, right? It's a way for members to earn income while sharing their experience inside the community. I'm not doing a very good job of that. So I need to make a note, make sure that I start working on that like I'm asking you guys to do. So where are you at with that referral program? Do you have one or don't you? Based on the business you're in, if you work for another company and you're in direct sales, then there is likely a built-in referral fee for you as well as for those that you bring on board, that you're not having to create one from yourself, right? Where you're just kind of using what's already built for you. If you are not part of a direct sales and it's your own business, can you create a referral program and what would it look like, right? So the other missing piece can be that lack of surprise or a delight moment, right? Where they're like, oh, I didn't know that. So small gestures. And a client I was talking with last night, working on his organizational structure, we were talking about the birthday card and thank you card, special event card automation for his business. And that's oh, I got a birthday card from them. Surprise moment, right? Small gesture, big impact. So you want to look at, are there ways for you to have those small effort on your side, but big impact for your customers, right? Another missing piece is that if it's infrequent or it's generic follow-up, right? If it's not genuine, then it's not going to make an impact. It's going to have the wrong impact, right? So if you are not, again, consistent with those follow-ups, with those post-sale touch points, then the longevity of that customer relationship is not going to be very long. So your task for this week, right? First task was to create that touch point map. Second one was to identify one weak link and create a quick fix plan for that. Your third piece of homework for this piece of the training is you want to identify one action that you can take in the next week to delight one of your current or past customers that encourage a referral, right? So it might be, just like we were talking about, sending a personalized thank you card or a small gift, inviting them to a special Q&A or mini training, or offering an incentive or an exclusive benefit for every referral. So why would you do this? Why do you think this is important? Why do you think this small gesture, small action item makes a difference? I've already mentioned it, right? Because small gestures make big impact, build that goodwill, and that ripple effect is what? Word of mouth marketing and referrals. So the referral program, we did a whole training on it. I'll drop the link in the comments when we're done, so that way you guys can easily find it because it is in the replay vault. You want to make sure that you're continuing. If you need help creating that referral program, you have a couple of different options. You can drop it in the town square and we can talk about it. You can do, if you haven't already taken advantage of the 15-minute free strategy session that each and every member inside this group receives, do that and we can absolutely talk about that referral program. Or you can just book a one-up business strategy session where we kind of do a deeper dive and we can look at how to actually get it implemented. So you have a few options there. But those are the three things. When we're talking about building a huge customer following and long-term loyal fans, it is about your touch point, knowing all of those touch points and that you're aiming for 7 to 10 touch points to get to that yes, understanding where the gap is or where the weak links are within those touch points and fixing those. And then the third is understanding that post-sale follow-up and relationship nurturing program that you have. Okay, those are the three. That's today. Questions? Now it's time for questions. And even if it's not related to this training that we just did, drop them in the comments. And I will make sure that I get those links into the comments for you guys. Okay. So no questions. All right, that's all right. So then we'll see you guys next Tuesday in the town square. Share with us what you have for touchpoint maps, what your weak link is, and what your referral program is. Share them in the comments if you want. We want to make sure we're supporting you guys and we can give you the feedback that you need to help get it implemented and adapted correctly. All right. I think that's it for today. I appreciate you all. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you guys next week. Have a great day, everybody.